The Fire Lookout game genre is, in my opinion, one of the most calm and atmospheric, but also one of the most scary and terrifying game genres of the last 10 years, and has provided some of the most memorable and exciting experiences I've ever played. So in this video essay, I'll be going over 4 games that all take place in the Fire Lookout setting, and also interviewing some of the developers behind these games, which is just so cool, all to explain just how good this genre is. But before we begin, this video is sponsored by me! I am literally this close to hitting 1,000 subscribers, so please subscribe so I can make more high quality videos. Anyway, let's begin with the grandfather of this genre, Firewatch. Firewatch was developed by Campo Santo in early 2016 and was met with extreme praise and acclaim. What happened to the studio after? Well, they were bought by Valve and now their next game is stuck in development hell. Sadness aside, this game is something truly amazing and literally created a genre. So to understand the games that came after, we need to understand what made Firewatch so great to begin with. There are many great things about Firewatch, from its atmosphere and its calm and serene graphics, to its amazingly well written dialogue and voice acting that makes each conversation flow and seem real, to also the horror aspects where the game basically spends the whole time gaslighting you into a paranoid conspiracy that would make even the flattest of flat earthers proud. The main appeal of Firewatch to me are 2 things, the realism and the horror. However, as we discuss this more, you'll understand just how different these 2 things are. The game is realistic in its story. It starts with a tragic prologue of the protagonist Henry dealing with his wife getting dementia, and, unable to come to terms with it, leaves for the woods. This is a very realistic thing, and is based in reality. But the horror, on the other hand, is a wacky and wild conspiracy theory that operates not on logic, but on fear, as you and Delilah both spin this sprawling idea that you're being spied on. And to be fair to you and Delilah, what else are you supposed to believe? What, that some former fire lookout is now hiding in a national park to escape the guilt from the death of his son in a climbing accident? Mirroring how Henry escaped his wife getting dementia and how Delilah wanted to escape her failed relationship. What a crazy story. Oh wait, that's actually the true story of the game. And again, this story is very realistic. And this is how the game gets away with balancing the realism of the story and the absurdity of the horror by revealing it was all just a real and tragic story the whole time. However, this game is still scary. You see, Firewatch is not a horror game, but it also isn't not a horror game. The whole game relies on the fear that something could happen, but nothing does. It's intentionally designed to make you buy into this big, grand conspiracy of being spied on by the government. So while it's not designed as a horror game, the seeds are there. However, one game takes the setting of being in a Fire Lookout tower and makes it into a scary experience. I'm talking, of course, about Do You Copy? Released to Game Jolt only a year and a half after Firewatch, and was originally made in only 48 hours as part of a game jam, Do You Copy is the first game, to my knowledge, that has a Fire Lookout setting to come after Firewatch, and the first fully horror-focused game to have the Fire Lookout setting. It's quite a short game, but man does it do its job well. You begin the game and explore the Fire Lookout and your surroundings. There's a huge forest and a lake in the distance. There's a board with a bunch of strange clippings talking about a goat man and people's disappearances. You are then interrupted by a person on the radio who says that he's signing off for the night, and we're on our own. You then go back to looking at the conspiracy board before then.
Hello? Hello? Is anyone there? I'm lost and something is chasing me. Please, you have to help me.
You ask him where he is, but he doesn't know.
Something started chasing me, so I started running. You have to help me. I'm going to die out here.
You then turn on the floodlight so you can help him find his way. You spend more time waiting around. The ambience here is so creepy, and the game giving you time to wait in between radio segments makes it more tense and creepy. He then says he's at a break in the road, so you look at the map and help him on which way to go. Then you go back to silence before...
Run. Now.
What's going on? You then look into the trees, and you see a pair of glowing red eyes staring back at you, before then... disappearing. Freaked out, you nervously wait. What did he mean by saying run? Is he trying to kill us? Then suddenly...
Are you watching the lake?
You go to look and... the eyes are back! This monster is stalking us too. He sounds like the hiker, but the hiker seems to not know this is happening. So could this monster be mimicking his voice? You again wait nervously until...
I don't know where I'm going.
He's scared and panics and he needs help on where to go, but you don't know where he is or how to help him. This time he sounds just like the person saying run. So you make a tough choice and decide not to help him, as you're scared he may be the monster all along trying to get us. He panickedly tries to reason with you until...
I can hear it right behind me. It sounds like... You're going to die out here.
What the fuck? It then fades to black and you see a newspaper clipping, another hiker lost in Gracewin Park, and there's a drawing of a creature similar to the one of the conspiracy board in the tower. We know from the conspiracy board that our character is investigating the monster. Then the credits roll, but this is only one of the endings. We'll look at the other ending later. But for now, let's move on to the next game, Nightwatch by Puppet Combo.
Nightwatch, who's watching the night if I'm watching the day?
Nightwatch is a game released in early 2020, taking place in the Fire Lookout setting. I interviewed the developer Puppet Combo about his inspirations for the game, and he said, "From what I remember, I came up with the character Park Ranger Jim because I wanted to create a PS1 style fixed camera game again, after a long time of not making them. I think from doing some research about Park Rangers, I learned that Firewatch Tower would be more realistic." And this really shows in the gameplay from its gritty visuals, janky as hell controls, and the camera angles. Oh my god, the camera angles. I'm gonna have to dedicate a whole section just to analysing these camera angles because they make this game really good. The game starts off zooming in on your Fire Lookout Tower. The graphics here are from that PS1 style like the developer Puppet Combo said, and it really adds to the atmosphere and creepiness. It then shows the title of the game before then fading into the protagonist, Park Ranger Jim.
First night on the job. I have a feeling it's going to be a long one. I just need to stay awake.
Then you're sprung straight into the gameplay, and one thing is immediately clear. The controls are so awkward and weird to control. This game uses tank controls, a term I genuinely heard for the first time in a Scott the Was video. But anyway, he made a really good point, and he said that it adds to the fear and realism, because if you were in a real life situation, you'd be stumbling and fumbling around trying to move. Anyway, you explore your tower, there's a computer where you can check on the weather. What, because looking at the sky isn't good enough, I guess. Some radio equipment that you can talk to people on, and a bed that you can't sleep in. There's also a note informing you of some basic information. For example, the radio emergency channel where hikers can call in for help shortly after you go outside. And survey the park looking out for fires. It's really hard to actually see anything due to the darkness and the grainy filter over everything, but you can make out a plume of smoke in the distance. You then go back inside and suddenly...
Hello? Is anyone there? You're on the Parks Department emergency line. Do you have an emergency? This isn't funny and it isn't a game. Unless you have an emergency, please do not use this channel.
What the fuck? Yeah, sure Jim, keep telling yourself that. You then go back to look out over the park and suddenly, the generator cuts out causing all the lights to turn off. Oh no! You slowly walk through the lookout before then leaving and walking down the stairs. This part is really janky to go through, but it does add to the horror of this game, as the fixed camera angles really make it feel like you're watching an old horror slasher film, which actually fits really well with what Puppet Combo said in my interview with him. Quote, "I use stuff I find interesting. Most of my work centers around finding different ways to adapt the slasher genre into games. And I think the fixed camera angles really help make this a scary experience, and it's a really good and immersive adaptation of the slasher genre. Anyway, you descend the stairs and enter a storage house, and it's really creepy, with really tight and claustrophobic camera angles. You then pick up a game cartridge, and a can of gasoline. You then fill up the generator and head back to your lookout tower. What happens after is really creepy. But before we get into that, I want to talk about another game in the Fire Lookout genre. Fears to Fathom, Ironbark Lookout. Fears to Fathom, Ironbark Lookout is one of the most recent of the Fire Lookout games genre, and man is it arguably one of the best not only Fire Lookout games, but also one of the best horror games. Now, I've already analysed this game plenty in two of my previous video essays, so I'm going to try and take this part in a new direction, while also making sure to explain the game for those unfamiliar with it. This game is the fourth installment in a game series called Fears to Fathom, that takes people's real life scary experiences and makes them into horror games. Anyway, how true the claim of the fourth episode actually being a real story that happened to someone is debated. A lot. But for the sake of being immersed in the horror, let's assume it's real. The game starts off with a peaceful drive through the forest with calm music playing on the radio. You then, after a lot of driving and a quick pit stop to eat, you make it to the check-in at the ranger station. While speaking with him in the background, you see a man walking through the forest. Perturbed, you go to walk to your fire lookout, but he tells you one last thing. To stay away from going up north, due to the bobcats and bears. Sure buddy, I've played enough horror games to know where this is going. You eventually make it to your lookout tower, and you're introduced to another fire lookout, Connor. You talk for a bit and then go to sleep. You wake up in the dead of night. You hear radio static, but no one's on the radio. You then go to pee off your tower, and you see a man emerge from the forest. He then shines a flashlight at you and then walks off. What the hell just happened? It then jumps to the next day, where you're enjoying a nice coffee overlooking the beautiful nature of this forest. However, you are then promptly interrupted by Connor, who tells you to go investigate the smoke off in the distance. So you do. By the time you make it there, it's dark, and upon approaching... Was that a man screaming? You'll know this as you approach the campsite, and then you go up to a closed-off pathway and see a cultish figure disappear into the bushes. Is this linked to that scream and all the other creepy occurrences? You then put out the campfire and head back. You report to Connor and...
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Son of a bitch.
Yeah.
They never learn, do they?
You then mention the scream and he's confused.
A scream? Must have been one of those red foxes.
You then say it was a manly scream and he says...
I don't know what you're talking about, new guy, but I heard from the rangers that a lot of campers have been flocking to that area lately because of the disappearance of those 3 kids. About a month ago, they were hiking with their families.
Hikers have been flocking to the area, thinking that it's haunted by some entities. He then says...
Sometimes, I only wish they were true.
Connor definitely knows more than he's letting on, and him dismissing you on the screaming? But then buying into a bigger conspiracy just makes him feel weird. What are your motives, Connor? Can we really trust him? Anyway, in the earlier trailers for Firewatch, you see a more sinister story that's being told, and it leans way more into the horror sides of things than the original Firewatch game. This trailer was actually brought to my attention on my previous video on Firewatch, so shout out to you who mentioned this. This trailer begins with the sound of wind blowing before then showing Delilah's fire lookout. It then goes into a conversation between Delilah and Henry. Then Henry says,
"Hey, so what the hell happened last..."
Do you have anything you need to report?
No.
Delilah being dismissive here is again weird, and with the knowledge from playing Firewatch, I'm assuming this line was meant to be from when they figure out that they're being listened to on the radio, which explains why Delilah doesn't want them to talk about it on the radio. The conversation then goes into talk about a recent fire breaking out. The visuals here are way more orange than it is in the main game, which has a lot more variety in different locations. We then see an early version of the scene where Henry's rope breaks. Then this happens.
Delilah, should I be worried?
No, Henry.
Now this is just insanely creepy, and I think this was replaced by the part of Ned shining the flashlight, or even that they intended to have multiple encounters with Ned throughout the game, and each time it gets creepier, as in this one you see him take a photo of you. And again, this part builds up the mystery and fear way more than the original one. It makes you think, just what was the original story they were going to tell, and was there a version where they leaned into the horror aspects more? Then we see this part, which is just so good.
Do people die out here?
People die getting out of the shower.
The trailer then ends with Henry descending into a dark cave with a rope, with Delilah in the background saying,
Henry, there are some things you can't prevent. So just stay in your tower, okay? Stay in there and watch.
That is just such a good trailer, and how it ends with him going to the cave getting darker and darker, and I'm assuming this cave was meant to be the cave where we see Brian Goodwin's corpse. And hold on, since we're descending from above, and if you look at the cave where Brian fell from, this might even be the exact same part he fell from. This could even be a visual metaphor for someone being lowered into a grave, which does make sense as technically the cave is Brian's grave, or maybe I'm just overthinking this way too much. This is just such a good trailer, and the foreshadowing from Delilah saying,
Henry, there are some things you can't prevent.
Referencing how bad she felt for Brian's death upon finding out about it. This trailer also leans way more into the horror aspect than the other trailers, which starts off with building up the environment and peaceful aspects, before then only in the last third introducing and building the mystery aspect. But none of them is such blatant foreshadowing and dark tone as this one. But the more I think about this trailer, the more I realise that it wasn't that the game was intended to have a darker and scarier tone. We can clearly see that the story has been fairly consistent, from encountering Ned in the wild to his son dying in a cave, or you and Delilah being monitored on the radios. What the trailer does do, though, is embrace the darker sides of the story and makes it seem like a horror game. Which links with the whole idea of being a horror game, but it's actually not a horror game, and oh my god, I'm going insane. Analysing this game has taken years off my life and sanity. I don't even know my ramblings make sense anymore. So all I have is one question. Do you copy? I said do you copy? Do You Copy is one of the scariest games I'm covering in this video, which isn't that surprising since I'm only covering 3.5 horror games in this video, but still. Anyway, to properly analyse this game, I'm going to take you through the second ending of this game. Everything is the exact same, except when you get to the final bit, he pleads and begs you to lead him to the tower. So you turn the floodlights to guide him towards you. Then suddenly, he says,
You should run any minute.
"What's going on?" It then shows a newspaper report. The Gracewind monster strikes again. It says that 2 people have disappeared from the Gracewind Park, including the park ranger and the mythical Gracewind Goatman. Now, to understand the lore of this game, then we would have to check out their other game, The Leeds Murder, which apparently is a direct sequel to Do You Copy, and gives us more answers. But this is a video on Fire Lookout games, so sorry, but this sequel will have to wait for a video essay for another time. Anyway, this game uses a variety of different ways to scare you. Now again, this game is made in 48 hours as part of the game jam, so if they point out flaws, do not think I'm complaining. Obviously, with bigger time to develop, more things would be executed better. Anyway, the glowing red eyes are used twice in the game, and are pretty scary. This is pretty creepy and makes you on edge, and you look around thinking there may be other times the eyes appear or something else you're missing. However, the way they just snap out of existence really removed the fear, but again, I understand the time constraints the game was made under. Speaking of, this is an amazing horror experience, and I think this is more of a proof of concept than an actual fully fledged horror game. If this game had more time to be built upon and improved based on this, it would be even better than it is now. The game takes around 10 to 15 minutes to complete, and if this was extended a bit, I think it would build up the horror more and make it more tense throughout. However, a positive of it being so short is that if it was any longer, it'd just end up being boring. The main gameplay loop is answer the radio, check the map, then end up doing nothing, while occasionally spooky stuff happens. I am actually really interested in seeing how their newest game handles this. and what direction they decide to take the series in, given how promising their first game was. Okay, now back to Nightwatch. You go back to your tower and begin to play the game. It's a text-based adventure game that sees you going through a lot of creepy environments, and this deserves a whole separate analysis, as it is heavy with a lot of detail and creepiness to it. However, it doesn't really fit with the thesis of this video, as it doesn't mention fire lookouts. When I asked about the meaning behind this game, Puppet Combo said, the Minotaur maze was what inspired the driller-killer concept used in my game Minotaur. This again goes beyond the scope of this video, but don't worry, I'm going to have one of my future video essays be a massive video essay on all the Puppet Combos games, because honestly, I wasn't very familiar with any of their work until someone commented about Nightwatch on my Firewatch Fears to Fathom video essay. And after playing Nightwatch and looking briefly at some of their other stuff, it honestly looks amazing, and I'm going to love giving it a good analysis, and I think to properly understand this game, I would have to pull from a lot of their other games. So for this video particularly, I'm purely going to analyse it as a self-contained experience. Anyway, midway through playing the game, something disturbing happens. You look up and notice the word SURPRISE! A horrible grinding sound revs up behind you. You start to run. Someone's at the door. Oh no! Scared, you walk over to investigate the door and... there's no one there. You then leave and head down to the storage shack. You then go to leave and... what, that was all a dream? You then hear the sound of an alert on the computer, so you go to investigate it, and it says that there's a flash flood warning and to evacuate to higher ground. Then you look and see that your rifle on your wall is missing. Oh fuck! You then go to survey the land from your tower, and you see a light from a campsite. You go back inside and then... they ask if anyone's there.
Hi, yes, I'm here.
They say that they think someone is watching them in the woods by the campsite. They then say that they heard a voice that sounded like someone mimicking a pig. Jim tries to reassure them that nothing's wrong.
I'll come by to check it out if that'll make you feel better.
Now you have to leave and walk following your map. So you descend the stairs and begin your journey. It's honestly so creepy. The rain sounds combined with the eerie music and the camera angles, which again you can't control. You know, that's kind of what fixed camera angle means. But the camera angles here go from small and claustrophobic to big and wide angle shots. Or here where it stays as you walk further away, making you feel small and powerless. This part of the game is so eerie and tense, and I love it. After walking for a while, you see a decrepit and abandoned building. And upon entering, you see something. A satanic symbol painted on the wall. Then this happens. Did you miss that? Well, if you look in the window, you see someone crouch walking past the window. You then hear a pig-like noise similar to what the hiker described. Then as you're about to leave, you hear what sounds almost like a power drill. Scared, you continue walking and finally make it to the camp.
Anyone there?
You check the first tent. The camera angle here is tense. You look inside and there's no one there. Then you check the second. Tension building up, you open it, but no one's there. Then the third. You go to check it. You look around before suddenly you hear someone screaming for help repeatedly. You follow where the sound is coming from and... you wake up caged and naked in a creepy building with the sound of flies and all creepy music. You look around and see the killer running in the doorway. He just stares at you and does nothing, until he then charges at you with a power drill and a Bible verse appears on the end screen with a loud static noise. And that was Nightwatch. The end credits are just so uncomfortable, with a loud, static buzz and unsettling groans. This is just so fucking creepy! Stop it! If you've watched this far, please genuinely subscribe. I'm just so close to hitting 1,000 subscribers, and I know I asked earlier, but please, it means so much. Alright, now let's go back to Fears to Fathom, Ironbark Lookout. It's now 2:27 AM, and you wake up to whistling and see yet another silhouette disappear. You then see a shadow projected onto your wall. It's the cultist again. You peer out the window of the door, but nothing's there. Even when you open it, it's empty. You hide again and hear footsteps this time. Scared, you approach the door again, see the head of the cultist moving. You decide to go and open the door, and all that's there is a goat skull with candles by it placed outside. Panicked, you wake up Connor to tell him. He dismisses it as kids pranking, but he makes no sense. Then, you go back to sleep. After a slow day of fire lookouting, you see a flare in the distance. It turns out to be a lost hiker. You help him find his way, but then he says,
I'm right here! I hear you!
What?
I hear your whistles. What?
What?
I see you behind the trees to my right.
That's not me.
You're freaking me out.
Look at that burr. Oh, it was just the park ranger. He drops you off some supplies. He asks you why you're up north, and you tell him about the campfire. He tells you to stay away due to the bobcats and bears. Then you tell him about the skull, and he says it's best to forget. Then when getting firewood, this happens. This is Silas. He says he's a technician for a nearby radio tower, but by how he speaks, he most definitely is a cult member. This guy is so creepy! You then tell Connor about Silas. Guys downstairs.
The radio tower's been out of service for ages now.
Who did we just talk to? According to Connor, it was the goons. It's now been about a week since you ran into Silas. You've had a nice time being alone in nature, but you've been woken up late at night by Connor. He wakes you up in the middle of the night. He says that there's some smoke up north, and he's so tired that he's going to sleep. And you have to be the one to investigate it. So you go to your balcony and look towards the smoke. You look through your binoculars and see a group of cultists. They're burning a body. The body of that hiker that went missing. The only thing you can think to do is take a photo and... Fuck! This is the most scared I've ever been playing a game. You can see them running after you, so you hide under your bed. You then hear him as he tries to break down your door. He hits it repeatedly, and then... he enters. He carefully wanders round, sickle in hand. He's looking for you, but he can't find you. He then goes to look round the balcony. Carefully, you sneak out of your hiding spot and make a run for it. But then, you're spotted by him again, and he begins to chase you. Panic, you get to the bottom and hide in the porta potty. He wanders round again, still searching for you. He goes to check the storage house nearby, your heart pounding out of your chest in fear. Fight or flight kicking in, you begin to run, far, far away from here. You make it back to the ranger station, but suddenly... oh shit. You see him running behind you. You sprint all the way to your RV. You get in and drive away, never to return again. Fears to Fathom Ironbark Lookout shares a lot of its DNA with Firewatch. In fact, the developer of the game, Rail, posted a screenshot of Firewatch in his library, so we can know it was somewhat influenced by Firewatch at the very least. The first main horror beat of the game is seeing a guy shine a flashlight at you late at night. However, in Firewatch, Delilah gaslights you and believes the mystery with you, but it turns out to be not as scary as you both thought. While in Fears to Fathom, you're also being gaslit, but in the opposite direction, as Connor and the park ranger both convince you there's nothing sinister going on, while actually there is something way scarier going on than you were being led to think. Now I could go on and on comparing these games, which I actually did in a previous video essay that you will watch after this. Firewatch and Do You Copy don't have much in common besides they're both in fire lookouts, obviously. You know, there's no scary goatman in Firewatch, no lost hiker, no creepy eyes in the forest, but what they do share is the vibes. I mean, the environment in Do You Copy looks so good. Like, tell me this wouldn't be a really sick wallpaper. Same with Firewatch, where the visuals have even been used accidentally on an official nature page. I do remember seeing something like that, but I can't find it for the life of me, so maybe I'm misremembering. Do You Copy, Nightwatch, and Ironbark Lookout do all share another feature of helping a lost hiker. However, in Nightwatch, and especially in Do You Copy, it takes more of the main focus. Speaking of Nightwatch, in the interview of the developer, I asked about the initial vision for the game, and they said, "I think the intent was to also create a prequel to the Power Drill Massacre, to bring some of the newspaper to life from that game. The driller killer was responsible for the disappearances of campers in the area around the sawmill." This is one beyond the scope of the topic of this video, but I really do respect Puppet Combo's drive to flesh out his universe with other games. And again, I am not familiar with their other work besides Nightwatch, but I will definitely be covering all of their games for a future video essay, because man, Nightwatch was such a good first taste, and I'm so excited to dissect and piece together the rest of the story, as well as enjoy some amazing horror experiences. Also in my interview with Puppet Combo, I asked what their formula for making something scary was. They responded by saying, "I go by what I find scary, which is being hunted by a maniac." And honestly, after playing Nightwatch, I fully understand what he meant, because that feeling of when you're out in the forest, and you know something is out there, waiting for you, it's just so scary. In conclusion, the Fire Lookout genre is a relatively small one filled with 4 incredible experiences, some of which being a few of the scariest horror experiences I've ever had. However, this genre is still small, and there's so much untapped potential, and I'm just so excited to see where it goes next. From the beautiful views and realistic narrative of Firewatch, to the tense radio drama of Do You Copy, to the slasher horror of Nightwatch with its amazing camera angles and authentic 80s horror, to then the absolute masterpiece that is Fears to Fathom Ironbark Lookout, taking pieces from every single game that came before it. This genre is some of the best and most immersive gaming experiences you could have. In times where each game is more outlandish than the last, it's nice for a few hours to escape into the beauty of the forest. If you've watched this far, please genuinely subscribe. I'm just so close to hitting 1,000 subscribers, and I know I asked earlier, but please, it means so much. Now, thank you so much for Puppet Combo. Seriously, thank you so much for taking the time to answer my questions. Sorry if they weren't as good as you hoped, as it was my first time interviewing anyone for anything at all. Also, big thanks to MegaDan for voicing lines of Park Ranger Jim in the Nightwatch section. Seriously, mate, thank you so much once again for doing this. I also have channel memberships, where you can get access to the behind the scenes and early access video essays alongside other perks that I think are really cool. With your support, I can produce better and more high quality video essays at a more frequent rate, and also so much more quality. Even if you can't become a member, I still appreciate you watching my videos just as much, because seriously, if I can be real with you lot for a minute, this has been just so fucking cool to do. At the time of recording, I'm almost at 1,000 subscribers, and the fact that there's so many of you guys enjoying these videos, so thank you guys so much. Anyway, that about wraps it up. Thanks for watching.